here at Pac12 Media Day. Brian, this kind of signals the end of summer for us, and camp's going to be getting started for Colorado next week. Let's start with comments made by Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff. A little salty up there this morning, throwing some shots at the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, a little defiant that, hey, our conference is not in bad shape, and maybe even some comments saying we're in better shape than you are. I think the one that's going to get the most attention is when, he was asked about the Big 12 comment, I think he was asked about it, I think he brought it up, about their comment about being open for business. And he said, well, we haven't decided if we're going to shop there yet. That's a pretty bold statement to make. And, this is an interesting time right now, with conference realignment. And, Big Ten had their media day, and they came out and, were kind of defiant on their end. And the Big 12 has had their turn. This is the Pac-12's turn to kind of say, hey, we're in good shape.
Yeah. And he did say that this is going to take months to sort itself out in terms of the media rights. Did say that there's a strong likelihood that they're going to have digital media rights out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. Chatting with other people that cover other Pac-12 programs, no one really seems to know what the future of this conference holds. Everybody's kind of guessing at this point. But it's clear he's frustrated, the position that he's been put in. And he talked about the fact that it's a tough move for UCLA, and they've still got a Regents meeting coming up. He didn't make it seem like UCLA is going to come back to the Pac-12, but said, they would welcome them back if that indeed ends up happening. But again, they've kind of already made that jump. And there's a lot of frustrated people, politicians in California, but I don't think enough leverage there to prevent that, block that move from happening.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen either. But he's got to say, hey, if they're going to come back, we'd welcome them. And they were also very, he and Merton Hanks up there as well. Who's, I don't know his official title, but he's over football in the conference. We're very adamant that, hey, we're still going to root on USC and UCLA athletes while they're still here.
Yeah, right.
I mean, well, yes, because, if they make the CFP, that's money for the schools here. So you want them to have success. If USC is the best team over the next 2 years and that gives them some money, great, take it. But it was interesting comments for sure. But my main thing, for CU fans that are wanting CU to do something is, the biggest thing I've heard, I'm sure you've seen it as well, is kind of, people have said at CU for being reactive instead of proactive, but this is not really a time to be proactive. This is a time you have to kind of see what's going to happen with these negotiations and see what's going to happen with, the money that could come, and, as Kliavkoff said, it's going to take months. It's going to take some time. This is not going to happen this summer. As summer's ending, it's not going to happen this summer. It might be after the football season that we find out what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think there was any real news out of what we heard today, but he did, confirm that they are looking to possibly expand, and certainly San Diego State and an SMU or a Fresno State are the candidates there. In terms of Karl Durell, again, nothing earth-shattering, but he says what you'd expect a head coach to at media day. That he said they're going to win more football games than they did last year. That drew some frustrated fans on my Twitter notifications. It's like, look, what do you want the guy to say? We're going to go 1-11 this year. So, did you have any main takeaways from Karl Durell?
No, just it's kind of what you expect out of that, and it's kind of the same message we've heard all year from all off season, that they like the young talent and they think they're going to be a better football team. And Casey Roddick and Robert Barnes said the same thing to me, and they're confident. This is the time of year for confidence, and Again, anybody being mad at Karl Durell for saying they're going to win more football games? That's what everybody says. Jed Fish won one football game last year and said we're going to win more. He might be right, but to come out and say that we're better than people think, that's what you have to say. And so you have to have that confidence going in. So nothing really surprised me. He talked about the competitions that we all know are coming up with quarterback and some of the other positions like with linebacker. He did mention, Quinn Perry has done a lot to kind of reshape his body a little bit and had a good summer in that regard. So that's going to help that linebacker group. So other than that, it's kind of what you expect out of Karl Durell.
A couple weeks ago, Karl Durell said that Brendan Lewis is in the driver's seat. He clarified with me today that it's a true competition, though. JT Shrout will be rotating in with the ones. he told me he thinks that JT Shrout's biggest challenge is JT Shrout and just the amount of pressure that he might be putting on himself, because he's going to make mistakes during camp, and to not let that snowball and really affect a whole practice if he does make a bad decision. I could see that. This is going to be a really hungry kid coming back from that ACL. What are your expectations with the quarterback battle? Given that Brendan Lewis now has 12 starts under his belt, I think it's going to be a little bit closer than some of the JT Shrout fans want. Yeah. But I'm sticking with my prediction. I think JT Shrout will be their starting quarterback when they kick off against TCU.
Yeah, I'm sticking with that prediction as well, but I do think it's going to be a tight battle. And I do think it's an interesting comment from Durell, and it makes sense because JT hasn't played football in 2 seasons, and he came here to win the starting job last year. And he got the knee injury, couldn't play. I think he will put pressure on himself to be the guy. But I think that's why it's going to be an interesting competition, because he's going to go after it big time. And the whole comment on being in the driver's seat for Brendan Lewis. Of course he's going to. I think he's saying that in regards to kind of get Brendan Lewis motivated and say, hey, this is your job. Don't lose it. But he's not saying there's not a competition. He's just saying this is the guy in the driver's seat.
With Brendan Lewis, and this makes a lot of sense in what you would expect, he said the biggest area he's improved in is reading defenses. Yeah. And he said there was just mistakes he had to make out there. He used the analogy of putting your hand on a stove when you're a kid, and you're not going to do that again. And he said there are countless examples of mistakes that Brendan Lewis made last year to where he had to go through that. It's one thing for a coach to say don't do that, but when you go out there on that nationally televised game and make that mistake, it sinks in a little bit more. So I am anxious to see how he develops. I get how ugly it was last year and why people don't want him to be the starting quarterback, but just his toughness alone made me respect that kid a whole lot. And Carl Durell said that he might not have been the most vocal leader last year, but his teammates saw what he went through and how he kept getting back up time after time, and that he has a lot of respect in that locker room as a result of that.
Yeah, I agree, and that impressed me the most about him last year. And my biggest takeaway on him is he was still a freshman last year. He's a sophomore this year, and I know he's a third-year sophomore, but he's got time. I mean, players get better as they get older, and I don't look at Brendan Lewis 2021 and say that's Brendan Lewis. I think there's a better version of him that whether we see it this year, next year, whatever it is, I think there's a better Brendan Lewis.
I asked Carl Durell and both players, who are the true freshmen that have shown up and they're ready to go. All three of them, even Robert Barnes on defense, mentioned Jordan Tyson, a receiver that came in from Allen, Texas. He made some really tough catches look easy last year. And Carl Durell said that the freshmen all came in mid-June, except for Jordan Tyson. He wanted to get in Boulder as quick as he could. And so that was the main name. Carl Durell also mentioned he's still really excited about those young cornerbacks. We saw Joshua Wiggins and Jason Oliver this spring. He mentioned Simeon Harris and Keyshawn Mills as well. So that's a position they got hit hard by the portal with their 2 starters leaving, but with Nico Reed and Kalen Moore coming back and those true freshmen, it sounds like they've got a lot of young talent in that room.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I've been doing position-by-position previews the last week or so, or a couple weeks, and my defensive back preview came out the other day, and unsolicited, one of the DBs who left this school in the winter sent me a DM and said that group is really good. And Buff fans are going to like them, and they're ready to play. I mean, there's a lot of really good defensive backs that this person left, and so he was very complimentary of what the Buffs have. And we keep hearing it. We heard it all through spring ball about how they like that talent, but it's just got to grow. And that's my biggest thing. They got to grow. They got to do it on the field. The talent's there, but I think we got to see it.
No Buffs were named preseason first or second team all-conference. There were some honorable mention picks in there. One guy that wasn't even honorable mention that, again, I've been touting him this whole offseason is Casey Roddick, down from 325 to 303. Great representative of CU football out here at Media Day. Robert Barnes as well. That's a young man that I think is going to go from unknown to probably all-conference this year in a potential draft pick.
Man, when I talked to him, he told me 303. I was taken aback because, I mean, he reminded me he came in at 386 as a freshman. To lose 83 pounds in 4 years while you're playing football, I mean, it's impressive what he's done with his body. He was 315, almost 320 in the spring. And he did say, I don't know if he told you this, but he wants to play around 310, 315. So he thinks he'll add weight as camp goes along. Most players lose it as they sweat, but he doesn't think he'll play at 303. But I agree with you. I think that he is going to be a lot better than people think. I mean, people forget last year he didn't have much of an off season because he got myocarditis in February, didn't have the spring, and really wasn't back fully healthy until the end of July, about this time last year, and then went through camp and the season. So I think he's in for a big season.
And Robert Barnes had a different challenge last year, going from Oklahoma, where he was playing primarily safety, some nickelback, to playing linebacker at Colorado. Said that Washington performance kind of boosted his confidence, and that was kind of when things came together for him. So I'm anxious to see what he does out there. He said in this new scheme, he's a guy that is going to be on the field and doesn't have to leave in certain situations, that he thinks he's now a 3-down linebacker with his experience at the position last year and the change in schemes. Anything else you gathered from your chat with Robert Barnes?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing was, I know we don't see him out of pads a whole lot, but I was impressed with his size. I mean, he's bigger than I remember him. And actually, I took a moment and chatted with Lincoln Riley, the USC head coach, who was Robert's head coach at Oklahoma for 4 years, and asked him, about Robert, and he kind of looked at him and he said, "I'm impressed how big he is. I mean, how he's transformed his body." Talked about how much of a leader he is, but really complimented the way he's grown into his body to be physically ready to play linebacker. And I'm asking Lincoln Riley about him, so he's going to say nice things. But he said he feels like this is going to all come together for Robert. They've had a chance to get together and talk a little bit, but I think Robert's got a chance to be a leader on this team, and I imagine he's a little bit motivated by them signing Josh Chandler-Smuto too. That hey, that's another guy that could take some reps from you. He's probably motivated by that a little bit.
Colorado's players report for camp on Monday. First practice on Tuesday. They're going to have another media day, the CU version of media day, a week from Saturday. Yeah. And we're only going to get to see this team practice, a partial practice, once all preseason. The rest of their practices are going to be closed. When Mike Sanford talked about how much they analyzed the spring game footage when he was at Minnesota, I kind of had a feeling we weren't going to see a whole lot. Yeah. It's frustrating because it helps us do our job there. I feel like at this point, though, complaining about the close practices is just kind of like beating the dead horse at this point, though. How do you feel about it?
Same thing. It's, I thought we might get 2 or 3 in there, but, when you see one and it's a partial, it's like, I mean, it's kind of what you expect at this point. And so, hey, let's go get ready for the season, and we'll do our job. And, there's not a whole lot we're going to get out of one practice. They'll probably make it pretty vanilla, knowing we're there for that hour and a half or whatever it is. And, you do the best you can by talking to people.
So you got a little vacation here right before camp. What's the plan out here in Los Angeles before you head back?
Yeah, so brought my wife out with me, and so we're gonna come back on Sunday. But little Catalina Island, and she likes to hit the beach and all that. So just a couple days away from the kids.
Yeah, I hear that. I got that earlier this summer. I'm ready to get back to work. I know the expectations are really low for this CU football team. I'm not predicting them to go to a bowl game because I just can't find 6 wins on the schedule, but I have a feeling it's not going to be quite as painful as it was last year, just from the simple fact that the offense can't be as bad as they were last year. They were 129th out of 130 FBS teams in offense. Right. I don't expect it to be a great offense, but I think there will be more positive signs to kind of at least just be more palatable week to week to watch this football team.
I agree with you. The question is whether much of the fan base agrees with us and feels the same thing. But I don't think – I mean, I look at it last year. They won 4 games with just a horrible offense, and I don't think they're going to have a horrible offense. I think they'll have at least a serviceable offense this year, right? And if the defense is, around what they did last year, which I think they can be, then this is a football team that could win 4 or 5 games and maybe sneak in to get 6. And I'm not predicting it, but I don't see this schedule as like impossible for them to get to a bowl game.
All right, we got a whole month. We got to kind of pace ourselves before that season opener. So we'll end it and sign off from Pac-12 Media Day.